Why should we be worried about the most powerful people in the world that have an unbelievable command of godlike technology, who basically own the vice president, who are becoming increasingly theocratic? I mean, no worries there. No worries there.
Hi, everyone. This is Pivot from New York Magazine and the Vox Media Podcast Network. I'm Kara Swisher.
And I'm Scott Galloway.
Guess where I am?
I like this game. Where are you?
Las Vegas, your favorite place. Vegas.
What are you doing in Vegas?
Oh, I'm giving a speech at a place you gave a speech at. I can't remember this. Stansbury. Anyway, I'm here to talk about AI, of course, because that's the topic du jour of many of these events and stuff like that. So.
Nice. And
I didn't do anything in Vegas last night. I went to sleep and I watched The Diplomat before that. That's what I did.
Oh, really?
Entire evening, yes.
I love Vegas. How does it feel?
Mm-hmm. To what?
Well, I mean, how does the mood? People say Vegas is dying because people now have Vegas in their pocket with their phones, and people have less money.
You know, it was full. You know, I ate at the. It's not the Wynn. I guess it's the Wynn. The one with all the trees that hang down. You know Vegas better than I do, but I'm staying at the Encore, that whole facility, and it was packed. I was surprised. It was very jolly, although it wasn't. I wouldn't say the casino was packed. That's for sure, but it wasn't like unfull. I guess I don't know. Is this the time of year for it to be full?
I think Vegas is pretty much a year-round place. Right. Conventions and everything, and
right.
I used to go there.
Been here. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I've only been here at like CES, so it's always full. It's not like that, like by any means like that whatsoever. So
I used to go there. My friend Lee Lotus and I would get ridiculously fucking high and decide at 2 a.m. that it was a good idea to go to Vegas, and we'd jump in his Volkswagen Jetta. Yeah. And head for 5 hours to
across the desert
to Vegas, across the desert, and we'd stay at the Golden Nugget, where because they had this buffet for $9.99, you could basically eat for a good, enough for a day or two. Yeah. And we would always put $5 in the glove box so we had enough gas to get home because we knew we'd lose all our money.
Oh, and did you?
Oh, yeah. That's part of the fun.
Anyway, I'm in Vegas. I'm leaving. I'm going to Korea this week. So
Korea?
I'm going to Korea.
She had to stop this. Why are you going to Korea?
It's for the secret show. Show.
Oh, God.
It's the last episode.
That's Korea's where I know a bunch of women who take trips to Korea to not look Korean, but to look younger. I guess Korea, they're obsessed with beauty and they're very good at it.
Yeah, they are. So we're going to do a little bit. They're also have one of the most aging populations in the country that's doing the most about it. Like I'm going to be in an exoskeleton or whatever. But they're planning a lot for their aging population in a really interesting way. So
they're bringing you over to inspire young people to start having sex? I missed the gap there. I missed the connection.
Anyway, I'm going to put some shrimp semen lotion on my face. That's what I'm doing. And I'm going to bring some back for you.
There's a component of that is appealing, but it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not even going to go there. I feel like you're giving me so many softballs here.
I'm giving them to you. I'm throwing them up, and you're not taking shrimp semen?
No,
you could do nothing with shrimp semen?
That is not the facial I imagine or want to see.
All right. Okay, scallop semen. I don't know. Yeah. They're going to have like there's always the word semen in their facials.
Anyway. My swimmers. Well, supposedly only 1 in 20, is it 1 in 20 or 1 in 200, some scary low number of Koreans is going to have a grandkid because of, basically as women get more economically viable and quite frankly get smarter and more educated, they decide this whole kid thing kind of sucks for me and they stop having children. And essentially that book in the 70s that said that the world was going to collapse on itself and that there was going to be a population bomb. Well, the bomb exploded, except it didn't explode. It imploded. And we're having trouble figuring out how Western nations and democracies maintain population growth. And the percentage of young people to old people is just shrinking every year.
Right,
and
which is why Hence, Kara's going to Korea to talk.
Yeah, and old people have this habit of voting themselves more money, and before you know it, young people are 24% less wealthy than they were 40 years ago, as they are in the U.S., and old people are 72% wealthier, and our society is is kind of turning upside down, and young people have no hope.
Okay, Elon. Got it. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, I'm going to talk about this topic. This is the topic. Anyway, last time I was there, I was with Walt when we were deciding where to have our Asia conference. And Korea, we considered Seoul for a minute. I really do like Seoul, though. I don't know how many times you've been there, but I really like it a lot. It's a cool city.
Yeah, okay. I haven't been there, and I haven't been there since business school. I'm kind of curious to go back and check it out.
I'm going to get on a bullet train, and things like that.
Before or after you get a facial?
All of it.
Oh, God,
all of it.
This is literally like
Korea.
This is like a 12-step method to get me to stop watching you porn. As I type in facial and I see you in Korea. It's literally, okay, that's it. No more porn. I'm done. I'm cured.
Anyway.
I'm cured. I'm one of those people that doesn't drink and doesn't watch porn.
This is the endless taping of TV. Anyway, we've got a lot to get to today, including Anthropic and David Sachs fighting over AI regulation and colleges pushing back against Trump, which is really interesting. I can't wait to hear your take. But first, almost 7 million people gathered to take part in No Kings protests this weekend around the country. Over 2,700 events took place in 50 states. The protests were peaceful with no arrests being made in cities like D.C. and New York, which drew obviously the biggest crowds. Some sign highlights: real clowns would run things better. I like taters, not dictators. Tylenol is safer than tyranny. You sucked in Home Alone 2. Mike Johnson blocked me on Grindr. And of course, Groper Cleveland. GOP lawmakers are calling the movement a hate America rally. Still, I think they won't stop, and claiming it's a political cover for a shutdown. It looked pretty jolly to me. Of course, as usual, President Trump tried to suck up the oxygen in the room by posting an AI-generated video depicting him dropping feces. Well, it was just a poop, a big, giant diarrhea from a fighter jet onto protesters. A lot of the mainstream media wouldn't say that that's what it was. I mean, I think it was just a distraction because he didn't get any attention. Turnout was impressive. I don't know if it does much, but it was really quite amazing. It was like, that's a lot of people. And again, it was peaceful and seemed lovely and a good organizing thing, I suspect. Any thoughts?
I think it's really important. I think that, I always go back to World War II, and that is what was so disappointing about World War II initially was that so many people seemed to enable it or look the other way. And then the pushback by Americans, obviously Europe had an existential threat that this guy was invading them, but America did have real controversy over whether to re-enter Europe for the second time after they'd paid such a terrible cost in the First World War, and a lot of people didn't really understand why that was our war, and we're about to do it again. And ultimately, their decision to move into the war was, kind of a vision of FDR that like this will hit our shores eventually. And they weren't as much pushing back on anti-Semitism. Really, they weren't pushing back on anti-Semitism. They were pushing back on fascism. And this is, in my view, America has become very fat and happy and lazy and has taken its prosperity, its alliances, and its freedoms for granted because the majority of us have been raised in an era where those things continue to get better. And so the natural assumption is it couldn't happen here and it'll keep getting better. And I think for the first time, Americans are thinking, or first time in a while, are thinking, okay, maybe that isn't a guaranteed right. And the best summary of it to encapsulate, I think, well, at least how I feel about it, is the following. The No Kings protest isn't about hating America, but about loving it enough to defend it. For generations, Americans have stood up when power grew too big, when truth got twisted, or when leaders forgot they served the people. This is one of those moments that defines who we are as Americans. We will stand together peacefully, not to divide the country, but to remind it who we are. And that's from this great philosopher, Eric Theodore Cartman from South Park. So, but he said, I thought it just kind of perfectly encapsulated the moment.
Yeah.
So to be clear, I'm not sure if that was AI. I did some research, and some people have attributed that quote to Heather Shreve Bueller. But regardless, it's a wonderful quote.
Yeah.
And this stuff is important. And people say, well, I agree that these protests are better when there's a specific action required. But
Sure.
I think that when you saw those videos yesterday in your feed on social, you realize Americans are upset. Americans are prone to action. Americans will take the time to give up their Saturday and put together a sign. The Americans on this side, it always comes across as a little hippy-dippy and a little bit like Mother Jones and Cynthia Nixon and with kombucha, which I don't, they come across.
It did, but I don't think this one did. But go
No,
ahead.
this one was less of that. It felt as very positive, very solid. There were some videos that really bothered me. The video flying around the internet that really upset me was of that idiot who gets tripped and hurts his face. And a lot of progressives are celebrating it and calling it karma. I don't think that's good for us or the nation.
No. I saw a lot of people in inflatable animal costumes. Which
that's hilarious. But that's been going on all over the cities. That's
I like
hilarious.
those memes. Lots of my friends who went, they said it started, I had the kids yesterday, was the day of the march. It was really interesting because several people said it started off kind of lefty, but then as the day grew, it was sort of all kinds of people and much more sort of people like moms and daughters and fathers and sons and stuff like that. And they said it seemed like very like lots of different people they were struck by. They go to more than one or two protests every now and then or marches. And so I thought the photos were amazing. And again, they did a lot of really good stuff on social around the contrast between Trump's military parade, if you recall that kind of loser of a parade, and that. And it didn't seem festive is the wrong word. It seemed positive. Yes, that's right. Yeah. And I thought it was like, it's great I bet they collect lots of names. It sort of gets people energized for the fight. And then, of course, Trump had to do a stupid thing. And I think... honestly, just so weird. It was so weird to do that and thinking it's funny when you're, a 79-year-old man. And I'm sure part of me feels like the fact that he did a pooping thing, right? An elderly man to do a poop thing, either it's sort of self-harming himself by posting it or else whoever's working for him is doing some brutal trolling of him. I just thought it was such a weird selection.
It's just more of the same. It's just a total lack of respect for Americans if they don't agree with you. And I don't know, and again, it's effective because we're talking about it and it enters the news cycle.
Well, actually, it enters the news cycle, but like all his little minions did one too of him not leaving office or him as a king. And I keep thinking these people are like, 60, 52, 79, like, this is like you act like a badly behaved seventh grader who nobody likes. I don't.
But it works. There's people just, like that.
I guess I don't know if people like the poop thing. I don't think anybody. I mean, maybe if you're 12, I guess. But I doubt they did. Anyway, it was a very impressive, and the media should have covered it more because I thought it was really lovely. Now, as of this recording, 6 colleges have rebuffed the Trump administration's so-called Compact for Academic Excellence in Higher Education ahead of the White House deadline. The agreement offers special access to federal funding in exchange for schools agreeing to a set of demands, including race and sex as factors, eliminating race and sex as factors in admissions and capping international enrollment. MIT, Brown, Penn, USC, UVA, and Dartmouth have all said no, arguing the deal would undermine free speech and academic independence. The White House initially approached 9 universities and is now reaching out to more schools after a wave of rejections. Really interesting. I think really interesting that they're doing this. I don't know as much about it. How did you feel about this as someone you like some of it, but I think overall the government is getting its dirty mitts and things that is none of their business.
Yeah, some of it's sort of it's not even what's in there. That's not important. What's important is whether or not the federal government should be threatening to withdraw funds unless they sign up to a series of standards, some of which include what sort of distills down to thought control or who you hire. And I think the majority of it could be, or a lot of it could be perceived, freeze tuition, although that's basically a price control, that's socialism. But who you hire and who you let in, that's sort of, I don't know. I have some issues with that. Reducing the number of international students. I mean, just to riff on that for a moment, we keep talking about bringing American jobs back, and there are few. For every 1% decrease in international enrollment, we lose $1 billion. And that is, imagine, just to highlight how fucking stupid these tariffs are, international trade wildly is asymmetrically beneficial towards us. We sell a NVIDIA GPU hopper at $100,000. It's $55,000 of operating profit times a PE of 40, we get $2 trillion in market value. Mercedes sells in a $100,000 Mercedes at 10% operating margin, trading at a multiple of 8. They get $80,000 in shareholder value. And another great example of how asymmetric and beneficial to us our international trade is, there will be a small number of students, although it will triple or quintuple this year, of American kids who decide to go to Instituto Empresa in Madrid. And they will spend money. They will spend their American dollars and their parents' American dollars in Spain, which will grow the Spanish economy. We get hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of kids and families who come here, and at NYU, they're spending about $280,000 in tuition over 4 years. They're renting $3,000, $5,000, $7,000 apartments. They're buying Chipotle every goddamn day. And then there's the soft power of they like Americans, and they stay in contact with them when they go back to run the economic ministry of El Salvador or wherever. It's just that it is so much high margin revenue for us. And to discourage foreign students by putting a cap on the number that can come here, they're looking at it the wrong way. And that is, the University of North Carolina says, okay, we're going to give you $650 million, but you have to let in 82%. Now, what they should do is just expand the top line number with their endowment and let in more kids. But anyways, I don't mind that. What they need to do is the following, in my view. And I had dinner on Thursday night with the chancellor of UCLA, Julio Frank, who's a really impressive guy. And I won't speak to the specifics of the conversation. My view is the first thing they need to do is coordinate. And that is, they need to hold their tongues and elect a couple presidents of these universities to represent them all, and then stand around the fire, hold hands, and say, whatever this group decides, we are going along with. Because how they lose is to be divided.
To be pulled off one by one, yeah.
That's exactly right. UCLA says, we'll take the money, and SC says, no. That's an authoritarian's playbook. You go along with me, I'll make you super rich. You don't go along with me, I'll illegally punish you. The first thing is coordination. The second thing is litigation, because a lot of this is just wrong. A lot of this is they're trying to interpret visa rules arbitrarily, and there's a precedence against that, a legal decision, the 2022 DACA rescission. There's constitutional protections here. The First Amendment against compelled speech or ideological litmus tests for faculty or curricula. That's a violation of the First Amendment. The 10th Amendment, spending clause, if federal funds are conditioned on political compliance, they could file in sympathetic jurisdictions. They also need to weaponize, and they haven't done this, their alumni to make financial commitments such that they have the financial wherewithal, at least in the short term.
Up, right? Harvard is actually up in donations recently.
Well, also the schools that have immediately pushed back here, it's no accident. They're the ones with the largest per capita or per student endowments because they can afford to push back. And then state-level counterweights. They could have legislative shields, attorney general lawsuits, parallel funding. And some, they need to use the courts, coordination, inspiration around fundraising, and litigation to delay this bullshit. But they all need to speak with one voice. Otherwise,
it seems like I don't know who the others, the 9 are, but that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. All of them should be part of this.
They should be speaking with one voice.
It's sort of like the Pentagon thing last week. Just stop it.
Also, I think they should go gangster. We have. Universities are a corrupt cartel. They have this enforcer of the corruption, which is the accreditation. There's a board made up of the incumbents that accredits universities. And you need accreditation, otherwise you don't qualify for federal student loans. And it's just insane. They don't allow new universities. They don't accredit new ones. So what do you know? Universities have not grown. They are not adding additional universities. Students are actually, there's a bit of a birth dearth. There's a chill over international students. They think international applications from international students are going to go down 20 to 40%. Yeah, and for every student that comes here to a private university, that's literally probably like, let's think about it. That's probably $400,000 or $500,000. Say the average family spends $15,000 when they come to America. It's like 20 or 30 families not coming here to go to Disneyland and Universal Studios and see the Grand Canyon. It's just really fucking stupid. Yeah, it's a huge. And in addition, our PhD students, and I've gone on about this forever, we attract the best and brightest to make our weapons, our chemotherapy, our pharmaceuticals, our internet applications would spill over into huge job growth. So this is just, in addition to the economic end of it.
Okay, go ahead. I'm going to stop you in a second, but go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, this is the bottom line. The accreditation institution should be an enforcer here and say, we're speaking with one voice, bitch. And if you decide to go make a side deal with your buddies in the administration, yeah, maybe you're even legally compliant, but we're going to make it hard for you to get accredited next year. Universities need to go a little bit gangster here and speak with one voice. Otherwise, they will be picked off one at a time.
Will they do that?
No, because they're all administrators, and they lack the type of leadership. Okay, I don't want.
Well, five of them have.
Needs to emerge. Right. A leader needs to emerge. Okay. Like there's some very innovative people. I don't know who the new president of UVA is. I really think the president of Harvard has done a decent job. Mm-hmm. There needs to be a leader who steps up and calls all of them and says, we either fall together or stand together. And you may have your own views on which parts of this you like or don't like. And there's a very solid argument for saying, I represent USC, so I'm going to have a dialogue. And this is what happens. The first university that cracks and agrees will get more, won't have to give up that much, and then they're going to come back for even more to number 2. Yeah. So they absolutely need to stand together. Right.
I made a mistake at 6 schools out of 9, but I agree. It's kind of ridiculous, and they keep winning legally. So it seems like, I think the proclivity of a lot of these places, and then we're going to move on, is let's just talk. Let's not fight. Let's talk.
Yeah, let's dialogue.
That's
what we do. That's what we do.
It's typical. Right. And so that's where they're getting. And I thought, again, with the reporters the Pentagon did, I don't know what the result of that. We're not going to agree. And then the people that agree are a motley crew of shitty, whatever, not even journalists at the Pentagon, and they look ridiculous. And then I think in this case, if they stand together, the Trump people typically fold. That's always seems to be their thing, is they push, and then it's essentially Taco Tuesdays. Okay, Scott, let's go on a quick break. When we come back, this is an interesting story. Anthropic becomes a White House target.
Support for the show comes from Saks Fifth Avenue. Saks Fifth Avenue makes it easy to holiday your way. Whether it's finding the right gift or the right outfit, Saks is where you can find everything from a stunning David Yurman bracelet for her or a sleek pair of Ferragamo loafers to wear to a fancy holiday dinner. And if you don't know where to start, Saks.com is customized to your personal style so you can save time shopping and spend more time just enjoying the holidays. Make shopping fun and easy this season and find gifts and inspiration to suit your holiday style at Saks Fifth Avenue.
Scott, we're back. The latest feud over AI regulation is between Anthropic and the White House, specifically Trump's AI czar, David Sacks. Sacks is accusing Anthropic co-founder Jack Clark of running a, quote, sophisticated regulatory capture strategy based on fear-mongering. Oh, did you look up all those words, David? This was in response to an essay Clark wrote about balancing optimism and caution around AI. Sacks is also claiming Anthropic has positioned itself as a foe of the Trump administration. And while CEO Dario Amodei, who backed Kamala Harris, isn't bending the knee like other tech CEOs, Anthropic still has a number of government contracts and partnerships. Really a weird attack, I thought, and specifically calling him on as someone who's supposed to be this AI czar and supposed to be pushing all the companies and everything. And of course, those that have showed up for Trump and given him money and done all these things get all the juicy bits. It's sort of an insider game here with Sacks at the center of it. And I'm sure he's quite effective at getting what he wants around cyber and, crypto and this. But to attack one company for just making normal, they want to build a brand around safety. To do that, it seems bizarre to me. I guess he wants everybody to go along with the casino that's speaking of Las Vegas, and the house is always in charge. But I don't know. Any thoughts on this?
You said something that so struck me, and that every accusation is an admission. Is that what you said?
Confession.
Is a confession. And he wrote, Anthropic is running a sophisticated regulatory capture strategy based on fear-mongering. No, we have never seen regulatory capture like big tech showing up to the White House. And the tariffs are effectively a transfer from the 490 that have to figure out this sclerotic strategy to the 10, the magnificent 10, that really aren't affected by AI. I'm sorry, they really aren't affected by tariffs. And for him to say that because Anthropic has said, I'm not going to bend a knee on everything here is sort of, and also let's be clear, he didn't write this. The White House wrote this. The White House, he's not going to do anything without the White House's approval. And so for some reason, Anthropic has gotten cross-eyed with the Trump administration, and you sort of, He's sort of threatening him and threatening them. In addition, this just at a very baseline level, we forget the administration is not supposed to speak to, punish, or reward individual companies.
Correct. That was what was so strange about it.
They're supposed to pass laws that affect everybody or don't affect everybody. Or they take all AI companies on a tour of Asia with the Secretary of Commerce to try and build business. Or they say, here's an idea. Every AI company cannot have any technology that lets people under the age of 18 engage in synthetic relationships. You don't decide, okay, I don't have an investment, me and my venture firm and my buddies don't have an investment in Anthropic, so I'm going to go after them individually. This is, and if you look at a more broader level, if you look at jobs, what's happening with jobs, who's getting really hurt are small businesses. And small and medium-sized businesses are responsible for 2/3 of job growth in America. Why? Because small and medium-sized businesses have no seat at the table. They don't get to go to the White House and cut sweetheart deals and get big deals and big contracts.
That's the whole thing. Like, I was thinking about all these businesses that don't get to go to Mar-a-Lago patio, as I said. And one of the things around this essay is read the essay that Jack Clark wrote. It is essentially like, I'm really excited about AI, but there's some things we should worry about. Like, literally, he's not a foe of the Trump administration. He's just making a normal thing that everyone, and by the way, there is a growing worry about all this, like among normal people, of which Sachs never sets his foot near. And I think if you're a parent, if you're a business, everybody is, and the stock market feels very frothy based on the spend. Everyone understands what's happening here from a stock market point of view. And all he was saying was, we should be cautious, like just because he wants to like have a little bit of regulation and put it in the hands of our elected officials, which would be Congress, to be passing some of this stuff. I think it's just, I was sort of really struck by the how corrupt the situation has become. And of course, it puts Anthropic is going to have to do government contracts. It's going to have to do, just like this is where all the big money is for these things to grow into actual businesses. And so it's really the picking and choosing, again, socialism. And then the weirdest thing this week was these stories of Peter Thiel's has some thoughts on AI regulation. He's warning it could summon the Antichrist if we stop it. Like he's giving these speeches that seem like we must do this, or so I'm not clear who the Antichrist is. I guess it's people who oppose the complete takeover of the government by tech billionaires. Like it was so, I don't even understand. He's gotten increasingly religious, and good for him if he finds comfort in religion.
Peter Thiel's gotten religious?
Oh yeah, very much so. There's a whole gang of them that are very like I think it's a brand of Catholicism. It's a branch of it, and so just the Antichrist. Are you kidding me? Like, it's just the strange. So now it's becoming, in terms of like a real existential fight for the future of humanity, is how they're selling it, and I think believing it. Actually, I don't think this is a feint. I don't. I think it's an actual belief system. It's all very strange.
I use both. I try to cross-reference and use them to check each other. I use ChatGPT and I use Claude to just see. And I like Claude better. I use Claude more because I find it's better with the written word. But ChatGPT I find has more comprehensive data. What I have also noticed is that, and sometimes it bothers me quite frankly, is Claude is more politically correct. If I'm doing research on the shooters or the perpetrators of political violence, sometimes if you phrase the question wrong, it comes back and says, I can't provide information on attempted murders or whatever. And then last night I got very upset. It wouldn't give me any information on, I wanted to see images of lesbian tech journalists getting facials in Korea, and it just wouldn't go there. Oh, you just got that. You just got that. That just registered. Anyways, it is more politically correct. Mm-hmm. And so my sense is that at Anthropic, they're sort of trying to be the good guys. And this guy just sort of steps out of line and doesn't line up doesn't line up to be part of the mafia that David Sachs is clearly a soldier of the Dawn in Washington. And the agree is sign up and you're going to make a shit ton of money at the expense of the lower 490. And it seems like the head of Anthropic, good for him, is not signed up and says, well, actually, I have some views and I have some concerns because I think the collision personally between synthetic relationships and AI is just so fucking frightening. I just think and they're not talking about it. I think it's going to make it seem like phones and social media were just an Easter parade. When all of a sudden we notice that everybody or a third of the people in our life have disappeared and are no longer coming down for dinner, no longer talking to us because they have decided that their synthetic relationship knows everything and knows them and it can run their lives.
Yeah.
And anyways.
This is with Thiel is much more profound. Let me read a quote because one of the things is the hostility towards technology is his focus, and he let me just read this quote because according to some Christian traditions, the Antichrist is a figure that will unify humanity under one rule, but this is from Wired, before delivering us to the apocalypse. For Thiel, its evil is pretty much synonymous with any attempt to unite the world. How might such an Antichrist rise to power, Thiel asks, by playing on our fears of technology and seducing us into decadence with the Antichrist slogan, peace and safety. In other words, it would yoke together a terrified species by promising to rescue it from the apocalypse. And he's like blaming like Nick Bostrom, who's an AI doomer, who I'm not a fan of Nick Bostrom either, but like this is like so strange and to fend it off. We have to stop people like this, I guess, like Anthropic, like any AI doomer. And if there's any, it's just, it's so strange and disturbing that this guy is at the center of power and is influencing all these people. And of course, South Park made fun of him. Peter Thiel is worried about the Antichrist, which was a very funny episode.
Well, I had some experience with this. No joke. Mm-hmm. I had a dream and the devil showed up in my dreams and whispered, "I'm coming for you." Oh, and so I whispered back, "That's gay." Why should we be worried about the most powerful people in the world that have an unbelievable command of godlike technology, who basically own the vice president, who are becoming increasingly theocratic? I mean, no worries there. No worries there.
Well, I recommend South Park's Peter Thiel and the Antichrist. It's really funny. It was really, really funny. Anyway, it's worrisome, and I whatever. Nobody's. I just didn't want to. That's enough. Anyway, this is an
one odd duck.
Odd duck.
I'd like to go to a strip club with him. Have you ever partied with him?
No. I've been to a party at his house. Yes, I had an argument with him at it. Anyway, It was a long time ago. Over something. I can't even remember. It was many moons ago, many iterations of Peter Thiel ago. I'm exactly the same. This is an interesting story. GLP-1 drug stocks fell late last week after Donald Trump said in an Oval Office presser that the price of Ozempic, or as he called it, the fat loss drug, would soon drop to $150 a month. Dr. Mehmet Oz, who's now running Medicare and Medicaid, quickly jumped in to clarify that's not a done deal yet. The clarification didn't do much to calm investors. Novo Nordisk and Eli Lilly both lost billions in market value. The price of Ozempic is currently around $1,000 a month. Talking about the implications, the price really goes down to $150. I'm of two minds. I think it should be $150, right? Like it should be really inexpensive for people who, especially people who are overweight, to figure out a way, because again, with the secret thing, actually every doctor I talk to talks about the importance of these drugs on the general population. Probably it's the Antichrist, because it will unify us in health. But what do you think of this? You were one of the first people to talk about the implications of GLP-1 drugs, but the prices remain stubbornly high and out of reach of most Americans on a monthly basis.
Look, every year when I do my predictions deck, which I'm about to do in a month for the next year, I predict a technology of the year. And in 22 and 23, I said it was AI. The first time I've done back-to-back on a technology. And in 24, I said the technology that's going to have more impact on a ground level than AI in 24 is GLP-1 drugs. I think these things are nothing short of revolutionary. I mean, the fact that if you think about when we came off the savannah, we didn't have access to trans fats, we didn't have access to mating opportunities, free play, so we become addicted to food, to porn, to gambling, because our instincts have just not caught up to institutional production. And these things are literally scaffolding on our instincts. And when you go into the grocery store, you not only buy less food, you buy more lettuce and kale and yogurt, and you buy less cookies and soda. It's just, how does it know how to turn off the parts of your brain that says, I need to eat chocolate-covered almonds late night after my 5 milligram edible, which I did last night.
Yeah, I had Milk Duds, but go ahead. I love Milk Duds.
Those are really bad for you. Anyways, you're not going to find those in Korea when you're getting your facial.
I know, that's why I had them here last. I found them in Vegas, but go ahead.
There you go. So, in the minibar?
No.
Oh, God. That's my favorite thing with my son is we bond. We go back to the hotel and we raid the minibar. Anyways, what was disappointing about GLP-1, at least initially in the United States, was the region that had the greatest penetration of GLP-1 was also, ironically,
the richest,
the thinnest.
Yeah.
And thinnest and richest go one together. It was ladies of lunch on the Upper East Side trying to lose that last 10. That is not who needs GLP-1. I believe a decent government program would be for Medicare to repeal the legislation that says Medicare cannot negotiate on drugs. We spend 2 to 4 times more on Ozempic than they do in other nations, despite the fact that Novo Nordisk produced, which is a European company, we have American-produced GLP-1 drugs. I would love to see just the federal government do what it's supposed to do, and that is help prevent a tragedy of the commons and use their purchasing power to take these drugs down to $50 a month, because then it becomes accretive. You will save more than that on food. And the one thing Americans share is not military service, it's not their ethnicity, it's not their religion. The one thing we share as Americans is that 70% of us are overweight or obese.
Yeah.
And if you wanted to figure out a way to save $100 billion, $200 billion, $500 billion a year, you would get America down to Japanese-like levels of obesity, where only 4% of the Japanese are obese. I think it's
actually more than that, because I have to say, in doing all this series I'm doing, everyone's like, oh, ultimately it's food, exercise, being rich, and sleep and stuff like that. Ultimately for longevity. But every expert I talk to is like, these drugs are miraculous in terms of getting us to the place we need. Besides the really cool stuff that's happening with cancer and AI and, and CRISPR.
It's here.
This is the thing that every single, and not just that, but around issues around stroke, around and taking it in a small amount. Like some of my doctors, like, you need to take a little bit in a small amount.
Right. I know a ton of people that aren't fat that microdose GLP-1. I had one of those moments.
But it's more addiction, right? And drinking and cognitive stuff, all this stuff that is like around it. And of course, it does worry some people that it could like make a left turn, like fen or whatever. But every doctor I talk to is very much like not worried about this drug. It's a really interesting development.
About 2 years ago, I got invited to speak at a dinner, and it was neuroscientists. And I thought, wow, I would like to be in there with a bunch of neuroscientists in case I ever get sick, or it's just not a bad idea to have relationships with really good doctors. And so it was a dinner. There was about 16 neuroscientists and me there, and the head of this hospital, and I think probably a couple of people who like funded the Gold Circle of, whatever it was, Langone. And I noticed about an hour into the dinner, I looked around the table, and all the plates were half eaten. All of them. No one had finished their meal. And I said, I can't help it. I noticed, and then people had pushed away their food or asked it to be taken away. And I'm like, I said, this is very unusual. No one's eating their food. And I said, can I ask a question? And obviously it was off the record. I said, who here is on GLP-1 drugs? And they all looked at each other sheepishly. And like 8 of the 14 folks, it was 12 men and 2 women, raised their hands. And that is supposed to be the tell for if a drug works, is its adoption by the medical community itself. But these things, if you were to stop 10 people on the street in America and find 10 hardcore users of AI and 10 people on GLP-1 drugs and query them about the impact on their life, emotionally, psychologically, economically, I think GLP-1's having a much bigger impact on people than AI.
But I'm talking about getting it down to the regular, the people.
We should give it out.
Well, that's the thing. I did an interview with a nurse who was 350 pounds, and she went down. But what they did, and then I introduced her doctor, who's also a well-known weight loss doctor, and it was a nutritionally focused doctor, but it was combined with learning how to cook at fresh foods and exercise. Like, it's
You
the
got to
whole
do the
package.
exercise. Yeah.
It's the
100%.
whole package, and not just this is not that you just take the drug and that's it. And that's what was, I mean, I was, of all the interviews I've done for this thing, that interview was the most moving because I had dinner with her family. And one thing that was really interesting is she said to me in the kitchen, she goes, I was embarrassed. I couldn't do things with them. Like, they went to the Grand Canyon. It's a very fit family, except for her. And they went and hiked, and I couldn't do it. And I'd have 2 seats on an airplane. You know, the whole story of overweight people. Yeah. And she goes, I was so embarrassed for them. I was embarrassing to them. And I repeated it. She hadn't ever told her family, and they were heartbroken that she felt that way. It was a really I was very moved. You know what I mean? And it wasn't like I could, because she tried everything. Like, she tried all the diets and everything else. And I have to say, she has such a better life. Like, and it's not someone who has a lot of money, very modest house in Massachusetts, nurse, hardworking, and knows about health, right? Is not someone who's not aware of the issues. And just, it seems like she's going to live a lot longer. That's just the facts, right? And so I was like, the combination of the drug with lifestyle changes and the drug allows you to do the lifestyle changes more successfully is a really interesting thing. But what do you think of Trump doing this? This is like crazy. Like, well, although it's kind of good, like in this case, I'm like, fine.
I love this topic. So let me back up. The reason why Gavin Newsom will likely be president in 2028 is the same reason why we should have a federal program to get GLP-1 drugs out to everyone that needs them after negotiating a ridiculously low price. And it's the following. America is an exceptionally and dangerously and unfairly luxurious country. And one of the strongest forward-looking indicators of whether a child is going to suffer from adulthood depression is if they're overweight. And also the American Academy of Pediatrics, which is not promiscuous around recommending drug intervention for children, has recommended, right, has embraced GLP-1 for children. Because here's the bottom line. When you're obese in America, on many levels, you're fucked. Mm-hmm. You're going to have trouble finding a mate. You're going to have trouble getting hired. People immediately look at you, and regardless of how many subscriptions to the Atlantic or the New York Times, they immediately subconsciously go, weak. And it's unfair. And then you look in the mirror and you go, I'm weak and I have no control of my life. And in my view, after negotiating a radically low price and playing them off against each other, every household in America that is suffering from obesity, and not a woman looking to lose her last 10 pounds, but if a doctor says obesity is a presage for diabetes for you, it is getting in the way of your mental health, it is getting in the way of your ability to exercise, this shit should be everywhere. It's like fluoride in water. Put the GLP-1 in effectively, metaphorically, in water. This would be one of the most accretive things emotionally and financially we could do in the United States over 36 months.
I agree. We have to wrap up on this one, but let me say one of the things that I am against is like what Pete Hegseth did, fat generals. Like, making it awful, figuring out ways for people to have a better life is different than using fat shaming and everything.
Yeah, don't fat shame. I 100%.
I'm not. I'm just saying that's what I'm saying. And then the second thing is, what's interesting about the Trump administration, RFK Jr. is against all this, and Oz is on the other side. So this should be a really interesting discussion, I think. Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens here, because RFK thinks you should just jog and eat, kill your own animals.
Yeah, but RFK is blessed with good genetics, and
exactly.
And right. Mehmet is a doctor, and he sees some people. Everybody has people who are overweight in their lives. And we immediately look at them and we unfairly think they're weak. A lot of them are in food deserts. A lot of them don't have the money to do anything but eat cheap calories, which are fat. And quite frankly, a lot of them are just born really big. They're just, they're born big. So we need empathy. Having said that, Kara, I do think there was a movement that was unproductive. And unfortunately, there's no The pendulum is never at the middle where it's like, okay, let's have empathy for these people. Let's figure out programs to give them the capability. Let's give them GLP-1 drugs. But when the industrial food complex, including Coca-Cola and McDonald's, which, by the way, is the stock price of Coca-Cola, PepsiCo, McDonald's, KFC, they're all almost entirely correlated to obesity in the U.S.
Yeah.
And so what did they do? And also, many of the major clothing brands are very much tied to plus-size clothing. What do? They started to romanticize and celebrate obesity. And I hate to say this, and I'll get negative comments for it.
You will.
You're not finding your truth. You're finding a fucking ventilator in diabetes. Okay. So while we have to have empathy for these people, let's at least be honest and say, folks, this is not something to romanticize and celebrate.
No, but it was because of the hatefulness that went on for decades before. I think
it was
it's
for
okay
money, Kara.
No, maybe
money.
maybe so. But the kind of I've had heavy people in my family. It's hateful the kind of things people say.
I agree with you.
And now they have a tool, and then to help get people there. And it is no question the right thing to do.
Agreed.
It's just that making people feel ugly about themselves is never a prescription to good health. That's
we agree with that. But should we have done away with the Presidential Fitness Awards that celebrates fitness because we think of it as fat shaming?
Trump doesn't exercise.
I used to be very motivated to get the Presidential Fitness Award, the third, the fourth, and I didn't get the fifth because I had a growth spurt and I couldn't do the pull-ups. And it was very motivating for me to be fit and strong. Just one last thing. I'm virtue signaling right now. Pharmaceuticals, GLP-1 can do what there was a drug that changed my life. Changed my life.
Kara Swisher.
And I'm still addicted to it. What's the definition of addiction? Something you continue to engage in despite the fact it damages your life. That's right. I'm addicted.
Right.
And baby, if this addiction is wrong, I don't want to be right.
Loving you is wrong.
When are you getting that facial? Right. Anyways, all right. A drug I have until the age of 40. Until the age of 40, I had never taken an Advil. I just never took any sort of drug. I think I saw the doctor 8 times up until the age of 40.
Okay.
I didn't. My parents didn't have money.
It's a short story. Go ahead.
Okay. A drug literally changed my life. Any guesses? And it has to do with aesthetics.
I don't know.
From the age of 13 to 19, if I was ever able to maneuver using a mix of humor, luck, and persistence, able to get a date, this is what you did on a date.
Liquor.
You would take a woman to a movie. And I remember going to see Grease with Melanie Burke. Moreno Burke.
Not a short
and I was
story.
so excited. I went down to this ridiculous preppy store I'd saved up. I got my mom to give me her credit card. I couldn't spend more than $30, and I bought nice corduroys and a polo, Ralph Lauren polo shirt with the actual polo logo on it. Yeah. And I bought Sperry topsiders. I was just so fucking ready.
Got it.
And I go into Greece, and every time I went into a movie on the few dates I had, I would have to purposely plan, do I go into the aisle first or do I let her go into the aisle first? And you know what that was based on?
What?
Which side of my face had fewer zits than the other.
Oh, okay.
Every time I went to the movies, I would strategically plan which side am I going to sit on because my acne was so bad, I would have to think which side is it less grotesque. Oh, wow. And finally, my dermatologist, after soaking me for 6 years of money I did not have, said, maybe we should try this drug called Accutane.
Accutane, yeah.
And in 11 weeks, I had perfect skin. Oh. Perfect skin. Wow. And if you want to talk about someone going through the most sensitive, insecure, self-conscious time of their life, and they have whiteheads and just their face is riddled with acne up and down their back and their throat. And all you can think about when you're talking to someone is they're staring at my zits. And they hurt and they're painful. And then 9 weeks, 11 weeks later, I have perfect, beautiful skin. And all of a sudden, girls are smiling at me. And all of a sudden, I don't think about my skin. And all of a sudden, shaving isn't like navigating a fucking landmine. It's the only the first letter I'd ever written to a corporation. I wrote to Hoffman LaRoche and said, this has absolutely changed my life. And I did this about I felt like it was 2 months ago, but 7 months ago. I was at a gas station in Nantucket where they actually pump your gas.
Okay,
and there was a young man, and he had terrible cystic acne. And I said, look, I'm probably overstepping my boundaries here. I had terrible acne. I took a drug called Accutane, and it cleared it up in 11 weeks, and it changed my life.
And now we have Scott. You know, celebrities are microdosing Accutane now, just so you know.
But my point is, I think that GLP-1 can do that. I kind of think there's an equivalence between terrible acne and obesity. And if you can give people back their confidence, their sense of self, there's nothing more important.
When you see this interview, she tried everything. But in any case, we think this is fascinating. We'll keep covering it. All right, Scott, let's go on a quick break. And when we come back, we'll talk about a major security hack. No, not the Louvre. Support for this podcast comes from Zeta. Marketers have been juggling too many tools for way too long. But imagine a world where all your marketing and advertising work together. No silos, no wasted spend, just smarter growth. That's what Zeta makes possible. Zeta is a marketing platform that unifies both paid and owned channels in one system. This helps eliminate duplication, wasted spend, and slow execution. With Zeta, there are no more silos, just accelerated growth. The Zeta marketing platform is an AI-powered solution that unites both owned and paid channels together in a single system, giving CMOs and CFOs a measurable path to predictable, profitable customers. So you can forget about the days of relying on third-party cookies, as Zeta is built on first-party data, so you can have reliable foundation for your marketing growth. Zeta is the AI marketing cloud, the platform that unites paid and owned channels into one system, giving CMOs and CFOs a measurable path to predictable, profitable customers. To learn more about Zeta services, go to zetaglobal.com/pivot. That's zetaglobal.com/pivot. One last time, that's ZETA global.com/pivot. Scott, we're back with more news. Cybersecurity and network security company F5 says nation-state hackers broke into its systems this summer, exfiltrating files and stealing some source code. The breach has been blamed on state-backed hackers from China. Over 80% of the Fortune Global 500, as well as universities and credit unions, are F5 customers. This is as big as SolarWinds, that many people I've talked to this week, actually. F5 is a publicly traded company, which would usually mean it's required to disclose cyber attacks within 4 business days, but the DOJ allowed the company to delay notification, which can do for attacks that pose national security risks. Really disturbing. And I'll note, early Monday morning, a major AWS outage took down services like Amazon, Snapchat, and ChatGPT. There was no indication of anything malicious at play. But again, every single cyber person I talked to this week was like, this is bad. This is another bad. Our landscape is so porous for for hackers from state-backed, especially from China. It was another disturbing thing that they didn't have to say anything, that people couldn't act, and we are so exposed from a security point of view. This was a really bad attack for people to understand how dependent we are on these kind of things and how vulnerable.
What I don't understand is, and it's easy to heckle from the cheap seats, is I've met some of our folks who run our cybersecurity or our cyber defense, and they're very popular conferences. And by the way, most of them have been fired because they're not Republicans, which makes no fucking sense to me. But what they all say is that we actually have the best. And what I don't understand is, why isn't it like nuclear weapons, in the sense that if they do something like this, shouldn't we be hitting them back 3 times as hard until we all come to sort of a détente?
We may be. But they were in there. One of the things that's classic of these things, they've been in there for 2 years, and then they place things there and then disappear and erase where they were, and that's what they've been doing. And so, there's very little known because they keep everything quiet. And the question is, what should people know? What should we understand about it? Everyone considers this as big as SolarWinds, which happened in 2020, the end of 2020. And so, I suspect lots of stuff is going on behind the scenes with this stuff. But again, the cuts in by this administration, again, exposes us. The SolarWinds happened in the Trump administration, right? It was before Biden, just before Biden got into office. And it's the same thing, the idea of like exposing, we have such an exposed everything between our infrastructure.
The surface of attack is bigger here.
The surface attack is bigger, and we do not have the people in place in the government as much. I mean, remember he fired Chris Krebs, I love Chris Krebs, and a lot of people. But all this is all interconnected, including with the federal government, and so the Chinese have been very successful. I suspect we have been hacking them too, et cetera, et cetera. But there's broad risks here that I think as a country, we have not taken seriously, given our dependence on this. And even the ones that aren't deemed malicious, like this one this morning, if AWS has a major outage, all the services get affected, whether it's Amazon, the stuff we use day to day. And so much, it's something we really do need. We should talk about more, and it's complex, obviously, but our country is much more exposed than people realize. I'll just note that.
Well, our tech infrastructure, technology loves scale and compatibility, right? So everything's running on the same source code and it can be more fluid and more frictionless. And to their credit, we have 50 states and 50 different electoral procedures and 50 independent technologies tallying votes. And a lot of people or tech companies have said this should all be on one system. And the best defense against that is that, okay, it's feasible that one of us gets hacked, but it's very unlikely all 50 are going to get hacked because we're all on different systems. And just as technology loves scale, it creates more vulnerability because you have entire power grids now that are essentially, if someone figures out how to hack that power grid, you could have 3 states in the Southeast go down. And what this requires, which we don't have, it requires skill and resources of which we have more than anyone in the world. What we don't have is the long game. So, for example, I think the greatest anti-terrorist precision attack in history was the pager attack against Hezbollah. That was years in the making. And what the Chinese do is the long game. My guess is every time there's a cyber attack, my guess is it was put in place or the wheels were put in motion 2 or 3 years ago. And unfortunately, because of this political back and forth and firing and hiring, it is much more difficult. And also just American mentality focused on quarterly earnings. American mentality does not play the long game. And the Chinese have a 50-year plan. So they already have assets on the ground here trying to implant listening devices, security code routers that maybe in 2, 3, 5 years they activate because what you don't want to do to raise red flags are a function of not only the activity, but the cluster and the concentration of them. And so if it's just 1 or 2 small infiltrations and then there's not a follow-up, people don't worry as much about it. And there's so many ways that our short-term, quite frankly, thinking helps us, but on a lot of levels it hurts us, and this is one of those ways. These guys are in for the long game. They'll start putting in place the infrastructure for cyber attacks that they won't be able to activate for 5 or 7 or 10 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, we have to move on, but one more quick break, and we'll be back for wins and fails.
Support for the show comes from Vanguard. The lineup includes over 80 bond funds. To all the financial advisors listening, let's talk about bonds for a minute. Capturing value in fixed income is not easy. Bond markets can be massive, murky, and let's be real, a lot of firms throw a couple of flashy funds your way and call it a day, but not Vanguard. Vanguard bonds are institutional quality. They're actively managed by a 200-person global squad of sector specialists, analysts, and traders. Lots of firms like to highlight their star portfolio managers, like it's all about the one brilliant mind making the magic happen. Vanguard's philosophy is a little different. They believe the best active strategies should be shared across the team. That way, every client benefits from the collective brainpower, not just one individual's take. So, if you're looking to give your clients consistent results year in and year out, go see the record for yourself at Vanguard.com/pivot. That's Vanguard.com/pivot. All investing is subject to risk. Vanguard Marketing Corporation, distributor.
Okay, Scott, some wins and fails. We got to be quick because Kara's got another interview soon. Why don't you start?
Well, the obvious one here is, and we spent some time talking about it. I do think that the protests were an enormous win for America. We've all been just so desperate for some pushback, and wondering where Americans are. Well, 7 million turned out, and that's about 2% of the population. Supposedly, I don't know where this test comes from, but supposedly when you had 3.5%, which would be 11 million, that's when real action starts. But I just don't think there's any getting around it. A lot of Republican congressmen and senators must have noticed that and said, okay, this is there's some real issues here. So I thought at a minimum, it just gave a lot of comfort to Americans that people value our democracy. They value peaceful protest, and they're resisting, and they're willing to give up their own time, and they really do value the blessings, the liberties, and the prosperity. So look, that's my win. I thought it was really, really wonderful and inspiring. And I tried to take my kids to the tube station where their mother slept to talk about fascism. They wanted nothing to do with it. But there were protests in Germany. There were protests in the UK. They were all incredibly peaceful, incredibly positive, incredibly optimistic. It was just a good look for America, a very good look for a democracy, a very good look for people who want to resist against Trump. That's my win. That's an easy one. The fail is George Santos, the disgraced representative. His 7-year prison sentence has been commuted by Trump after serving just 3 months. He pled guilty to wire fraud and aggravated identity theft. He lied. He committed crimes. He was an embarrassment to the government. But the thing that really chased me here, he's no longer required to pay back more than $370,000 in court-ordered restitution to his victims. Amazing. So the people he lied to and stole from, he no longer has to pay them back. Yeah. In addition, he was only the 6th lawmaker in U.S. history to be expelled from Congress after an ethics report was released outlining his behavior in 2023. He was also the first to be expelled before being convicted of federal crimes or supporting the Confederacy. So just some of his claims. He claimed his grandparents were Holocaust survivors. They were not. He claimed that the CCP kidnapped his 5-year-old niece. Mm-hmm. That is not true. He claimed to be Jewish, then Jew-ish. Mm-hmm. He claimed he was a model for Vogue. That's my favorite. He claimed he had a university degree. By the way, he said he went on a volleyball scholarship. That guy hasn't jumped since 1988. He claimed he had a brain tumor. And some of the more outlandish things he said or did while after being in Congress, he spent campaign funds on Botox, Hermes, and my favorite, OnlyFans. He started selling $200 custom videos on Cameo. I don't think that's that bad. He had a staffer impersonate Kevin McCarthy's chief of staff to raise money, and he committed ID theft by using donors' credit cards to make purchases. So, and what's so sad about this is that there are people who are currently incarcerated who have applied for clemency, and some of them have done their best to compensate their victims, show that they're on the right track, and are deserving of clemency. And because they're trying to get Marjorie Taylor Greene back in camp, on camp, and she seemed to like George Santos, they move a guy who's showed no remorse, who is a fucking embarrassment to the Constitution, to America. They push this guy to the front of the line, and the people he stole from are shit out of luck, such that the president can kiss Marjorie Taylor Greene's ass. This is such an abuse of the basic understanding of what clemency is for. The clemency and pardoning is a wonderful thing. We get it wrong all the time in our justice system. The justice system is a powerful, but it is a crude instrument. And we find out, new evidence comes to light, or we find out that for whatever reason, strange laws resulted in a guy who stole an antenna from a Kmart gets issued a life sentence. And these things are taken seriously, and very talented people review these things. And we're just making a mockery of the system. Yep. Anyways, my fail is that Representative George Santos, his sentence was commuted because of the president's attempt to get Marjorie Taylor Greene to stop talking about the Epstein files. And by the way, my favorite sign was GOP, Guardians of Pedophiles.
Anyway, okay, all right. My fail was my fail is these issues around these tech companies and safety, like pushing back against the idea there should be safety. But it's more than that. There's a great story in the New York Times today about As tech companies build data centers worldwide to advance artificial intelligence, vulnerable communities have been hit by blackouts and water shortages. They're not just the idea that we are against advancing technology at any, and then they say at any cost, is ridiculous. They're setting it up so that they get all the juicy bits and they hurt people around the globe. 60% of the data centers are outside of the US, and there's lots of projects coming all over the place around the world. But it takes enormous amounts of power for computing and water to cool the computers. And these people are, the famous one was Musk going into a community, I think in Tennessee, and polluting it because he wanted to get his thing up faster than anyone else. And all the governments are angling to give them cheap land and tax breaks and things like that. But there is very little transparency around how they're building these data centers. And it's the same idea. They don't care about safety of anybody because they themselves are doing things. And it's really hurting individual communities. And they go into vulnerable communities to be able to do what they need to do. And it's very dangerous. And they're not really investing in the communities because most of these things use very few people. And these plans just sail through. And it's the same idea. If Anthropic wants to talk about safety, or if we want to talk about safety, it doesn't mean we hate it. It means that we care about the citizens more than lining the pockets of David Sachs and his friends. So that would be my fail. I have two very quick wins. I've got to give a credit to both Lorraine Powell Jobs and Ron Conway. He resigned from the board of Salesforce's philanthropic arm over Mark Benioff's original comments about bringing National Guard into San Francisco. Lorraine Powell Jobs also wrote an essay, Beware of Philanthropists Who Want to Control in Exchange for Their Giving. And it was a great essay about that. I really give kudos to them for stepping out rather a lot against Mark's stupid comments. He's now doesn't believe the National Guard needs to come. He walked himself back, but he tarnished himself. So I give credit to they did. Lots of people complained, but it's hard to go out on a limb if you're in that group of people, and they did. But I actually want to give the win to The Diplomat. The new season's downloaded to Netflix, and Kerry Russell is so good. It's such a good, and Allison Janney and Bradley Whitford. Everybody on that cast is amazing.
This is so you have a crush on Kerry Russell.
I love her. She's a fan of Pivot, by the way. I don't have a crush on her. Actually, I have a crush on the whole show because it's so diplomat-y. I wanted to be in the State Department, so I love the whole. It's sort of like my home. I like.
Is she going to Korea with you?
No, she's not. But we're going to have she's a fan of Pivot.
Look at you light up.
No, I'm
I just
not.
say
No,
Kerry Russell
no.
when you start smiling.
No,
It's okay.
You're
It's
wrong.
okay.
Not my type. But nonetheless,
even though you're 80, you still have hormones.
No, I do not. She's not my type.
You've been taking that estrogen. You're getting a little.
I just want to say it's a great show, and lots of people like this show. Stop it! Everyone likes the show. As usual, you turn something beautiful into ugliness.
Yeah.
But it's
Never
a great.
Seen it. Never seen it.
All right, it's great. You would love it.
I watched 4 episodes of Slow Horses last night. Though.
Okay, if you like that, did you like Homeland?
Love Homeland.
Okay, you'll love this. The writer, I think, is the writer of this is Deborah Kahn. She's so talented. There was one line. This is why I love it. There's all these great lines. Besides, she doesn't comb her hair, etc., and they make jokes about it. But there's one.
Yeah,
line.
I'm sure she looks just awful.
She looks.
She's the one that that's. Let me guess. She's like really sloppy and still looks like a 9 out of 10, right?
11 out of 10.
Yeah, right.
But she's really good. She's had a great career. She's had really interesting roles, including The Americans and things like that. But I don't want to talk about Kerry Russell because even though I think she's great. But I have to say there's a lot of lines in it. The writers are terrific, and one reminded me of you, which is they're talking about her husband Hal, and I'm blanking on the actor's name who played it, but who's great too. But she goes, you're about as subtle as a kidney stone, which I immediately thought of you, Scott.
I appreciate that.
You're about as subtle as a kidney stone. Anyway, I love that show, and now you're making it ugly, which is very sad.
I have comments on all of this. Do you have to go get a pedicure with Boutros Ghali?
No. Go ahead, very quickly.
It's
Go
impossible for me. Okay, first
You'll have
off, the
another
data
podcast.
centers.
Yeah.
The data centers are nothing but, again, another elegant transfer of wealth from middle class homes to big tech. How's that going to happen? They are picking these areas where they are, quote unquote, desperate for jobs, or where the congressperson representing that area wants to get some of that AI money sent to their PAC for regulatory capture, for campaign fundraising. And the bottom line is these data centers, might as well be dark during the day. They create very few jobs. What they do is they will create jobs to get built, but they create very few ongoing jobs. What they do is they are so power hungry that you are going to see 50, 100, 200, 300% increases in electricity costs in these areas. And what will end up happening is these people will get outraged, so the government will step in and will subsidize the electricity costs of the grid, which is nothing but a transfer of wealth from taxpayers, especially people consuming electricity in those regions, to big tech firms. Everything in America right now is trying to prop up 10 firms who have been responsible for 77% of the S&P's gain this year, which is the only cloud cover that Donald Trump has to send federal troops into peaceful cities. This will be another elegant transfer of wealth. And then what was your second one?
Kerry Russell.
Oh, wait, Kerry Russell, the diplomat? Oh, no, Mark Benioff. Just so I can fill our YouTube comments with a bunch of hate. I love Lorraine Powell Jobs. I thought it was an elegant article. I think Ron Conway is fantastic. He invested in 2 of my companies. This is how we lose 28. And that is, I get it. Mark Benioff said something stupid. He has since apologized. And now everyone is doing what Democrats do. They're more interested in a purity test. They're more interested in grabbing social virtue. They're more interested in getting their Guardians of Gotcha pin. They're more interested in going after a white billionaire than they are around being effective. Mark Benioff is a huge ally for San Francisco. He is a huge ally for Democrats. He fucked up, and he's being treated like an apostate. And this is exactly what is wrong with Democrats.
Those essays were before. They said things before, and they didn't want to affiliate with him.
If you're Mark Benioff,
yeah,
and you have literally spent 20 years trying to be the most generous guy in California, supportive of progressive policies, supportive of democratic politics, and then all these Democrats wave in with their finger because he fucked up, and he did fuck up. And by the way, he's apologized. Let's just talk about the reality of this. Do you think Mark Benioff is now going to be really, really in it to win it and support Democratic candidates right now? Or is he thinking, you know what, guys, go fuck yourselves. This is what Democrats do. We have decided, maybe you're my ally, but you're holding the gun wrong. So I'm going to go after you rather than the real enemy. Could we be any more fucking stupid? And this is the typical Democratic.
He asked for National Guard to come to San Francisco.
He fucked up. And he's also been an enormous supporter of democratic ideals and politics. And here's the thing.
I'm not agreeing.
Oh, sorry. One strike, you're out. We're Democrats. And guess what? J.D. Vance in 2028. This is exactly how we lose the election.
No, I think we should.
Democrats are much more concerned with grabbing social virtue than they are of actually getting shit done. It's not social virtue
to be critical of your own allies. It's not. It's normal.
There is such a pile-on
No, you're so
right
far
now.
down the
There
Trump
is
world.
such a pile-on. Oh, yeah. Me and Trump were very tight.
No, but the Trump world is you don't apologize for anything. And
He did apologize.
He kind of did, but that's okay. Whatever.
He said, I'm sorry.
Yes.
He said, my comments were ill-timed and I'm sorry. And now everyone's writing op-eds about how billionaires and philanthropy
that op-ed
shouldn't
was
rule the
written,
world.
by the way, before, and I think it influenced him, by the way, FYI.
Oh my!
And I think
there is
Ron,
so much. There is so
I
much.
happen to know what's
There is so
happening
much hate right now out there from people who see an opportunity to pile on and grab social virtue at no risk to themselves, who haven't done a fraction for the Democratic Party of San Francisco.
Guess who I interviewed over the weekend? Bernie Sanders. He says we shouldn't even.
The lady giving you a squid facial in Seoul.
I interviewed Bernie Sanders, and he's like, "This is the problem with going with the rich people." I'm just saying. He's just,
okay, that's going to help us demonize rich people.
Not demonize them, but
come on. Rich people billionaires shouldn't exist, according to Bernie Sanders.
No. Rich people had far too much of an influence in both parties. Far too much. And that's what's got to end.
That's Citizens United.
Yes, I
get it. But in the meantime, let's try and get as many billionaires on our side.
No, no. We've got to
the same people talking about maybe we should bring the same people saying maybe it would be smart to bring Elon Musk back into the Democratic Party are taking a great Democrat who fucked up and basically casting him onto an island.
They won't let him into the Trump gang anyway, so it doesn't matter. That said, we should have not. There's been too much billionaire influence of all the billionaires on all sides, and it has to stop. Anyway, we're not going to argue this.
Okay, first, Citizens United. You're saying we should. I agree with you. We should do away with Citizens United.
Okay, all right. Let's end on that.
There's common ground.
By the way, Mike Johnson, swear in Democratic Representative Grijalva, you squirmy little bitch. Put her in office.
Awful.
Put her in office
That
because
is
you don't want the
awful.
Epstein.
What a lie.
What a lie.
The guy running the country right now is in an unmarked grave. Jeffrey Epstein is running the country right now.
I swear. Put her in office. She was elected by people. I want the people to speak. Anyway, we want to hear from you. Send us your questions about business, tech, or whatever's on your mind. Go to nymag.com/pivot to submit a question for the show or call 855-51-PIVOT. Elsewhere in the Kara and Scott universe, this week on with Kara Swisher, I just said I spoke with Senator Bernie Sanders as he got back from the No Kings rally. Let's listen to what he had to say about pushing back against billionaires.
Money is important. I'm a politician. You don't need zillions of dollars to run a campaign. You need a certain amount, and you can win. But that is, and then, of course, ultimately, you got to get rid of the Citizens United, which allows billionaires to buy elections.
So a heel turn on billionaires. Just ignore it. Just say, good for them.
If they want to contribute and play a role, that's fine. I mean, I appreciate that. I'm not, there are a lot of decent people who happen to be billionaires. They think that democracy and truth is important. God bless them. But the future of this country depends on working class people standing up and taking on the billionaire class, which is getting richer and richer.
I agree with all of that.
See? There you go. Now, see, you didn't think that was the case. He's very reasonable. Anyway, and reminder.
I like Bernie.
I know, I do too. Lots of people do. It was amazing that a lot of Bernie bros went to Trump. I think they're coming back in a lot of ways. A lot of his messages, he's coming around. Suddenly, everyone's coming around to Bernie. And a reminder, we're going on tour. We'll be going to Toronto, Boston, New York, D.C., Chicago, San Francisco, and L.A. Visit pivottour.com for tickets. There's very few left, actually. Okay, that's the show. Thanks for listening to Pivot. Be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'll be back on Friday. Scott, next time I see you, I will have had my shrimp semen facial. I'll let you know how it goes. Read us out.
Today's show was produced by Lara Naaman, Zoë Marcus, and Taylor Griffin. Ernie Nertot edited this episode. Jim Mackil edited the video. Additional support from Brad Sylvester and Rosemarie Ho. Thanks also to Drew Burrows, Mia Silverio, and Dan Shilon. Nishat Kurwa is Vox Media's executive producer of podcasts. Make sure to follow Pivot on your favorite podcast platform. Thanks for listening to Pivot from New York Magazine and Vox Media. You can subscribe to the magazine at nymag.com/pod. We'll be back later this week for another breakdown of all things tech and business. Kara, I call my penis Bernie Sanders because it leans far left and stands up for everyone. That's good.
That's bad.